what happened to
So
you?
tomorrow we go a bit earlier, and then we drop me off, and you go take the kid to go get something to eat and get some more.
我带他去买麦当劳 drive through。
And then go to some park area. 进去那边了，就那边有 get one So 你回来 when I'm done I call you and we swap. We go in and then I can, if it's too long, I see how long I take, okay?
Yeah.
And then I take it. I just wait in the park somewhere.
那个他有麦当劳赢的那个什么
就是你 free time around 那个 time 了 when I come out 1点多嘛，1点多 I gotta get there maybe half hour early 还是什么 From here to Homebush half hour
是啊，我们12点出去。
No 12点半
12点半出去，然后如果你是 quarter past one。
So you keep at least
你是要 at least 15 minutes.
At least 15 minutes.
At least 15 minutes.
Just you go there, you drop me off. I walk there, you take the kid to go buy something to eat. And then don't get out also. But when if someone call you, if someone asks you, just say you come for the vaccination too.
是啊。
Because in China you cannot go anywhere. You have to be careful.
然后在那个 Olympic inside 里面它就有麦当劳。
Yeah, just drive through 在哪里？
那 Olympic Park 的那个里面有那个麦当劳啊。
Drive through?
I don't know.
Anyway, you can check.
I can check. 我知道有麦当劳在那。
Not in a hurry. And you what time? 2:15?
2:30.
2:30.
那个我想说 2:15 not exactly 1 hour. What happening? 不知道你怎么样啊？到底怎么样？来得及回来还是来不及回来 ？Still waiting 那就惨了。所以我想说 one and a half hour maybe 有点 long， 那我就 OK， 那我就 2:30 吧，在 in the between。我现在差不多，你应该也弄完了，
这个他去干嘛的？
他去 Cabramatta， 他booking 什么时候
？No booking. There's a rollout.Cabramatta
有了
Extra sneaker.
他打了吗？
打了 this morning. 他说有很多 tent along Cabramatta area. And then we will just go there, line up and go in, get our paperwork.
That's the same one.
They say about 那个1000块你不 claim 就很快就没有。
That's the same one.
And then 还有那个 technical 回来就弄了钱了，不弄了就浪费。
没有不浪费，我要弄啊！我在打算做你的东西。
做什么东西玩那个 mobile game？
你每次弄认，然后你最小的儿子就黏。
Look, if you want to do, you gotta get up early while the kids still sleep. You do it that way, it's nothing affect you.
How come to do it again?
So the United States says it's carried out a drone strike against ISIL in eastern Afghanistan. The attack in Nangarhar province follows an earlier warning from President Joe Biden. He said his forces would hunt down those behind the suicide bombing outside Kabul airport. At least 175 people were killed, including 13 US troops. Well, the US embassy in Kabul is warning Americans against travelling to the airport because of security concerns. The country has specific credible threats against the facility remain. Officials say any Americans who are waiting at the airport should leave immediately. States and Allied forces are racing to evacuate their citizens and vulnerable Afghans before a deadline to withdraw troops on Tuesday. We'll be speaking to Charlotte Ellis about the situation in Afghanistan in just a moment, but first, General Elizondo has more on the drone strike.
The U.S. Central Command saying that a drone attack, strike, if you will, hit a ISIL-K planner, in the words of the U.S. Central Command.
How is there so much
and
people?
the strike was successful and killed that person. They say this happened in eastern Afghanistan in the Nangarhar province, the Shiraz province in the eastern part of the country. Part of it borders Pakistan. They say that there was no civilian casualties that the U.S. military knows about. Now, the Reuters news agency here in the United States reporting that information from unnamed U.S. officials that it was a drone that was launched from a base in the Middle East, and that it killed this ISIL-K planner who was driving a vehicle with another associate, and that both were killed. We do not know exactly when this operation took place, and we also do not know if this is
How are you supposed to do
more
this?
that are to be expected in the future. But clearly, the United States its first retaliation for the attack outside the Kabul airport on Thursday.
All right, let's speak now to Charlotte, who's live for us in Kabul. And Charlotte, I understand you've just been up to the airport, and as the deadline draws near, I'm wondering who's in control there.
Why doesn't this dude dodge?
Yeah, so last night we were
How did
told
this
by
Muppet
some
get all
Taliban
these
contacts that they were moving more forces inside the airport perimeter, what they were calling their Victorious Strike Force units, which are essentially like their version of special forces, and that they've moved more of those personnel inside the airport. The US denied that they had taken control of the airport fully, but we do understand that they are slowly taking control of more areas within the actual airport perimeter. And then this morning when we went down, we went to the north side of the airport, because in the last 2 weeks that has been controlled by a CIA-run militia. They're known as the Zero units, and they're associated obviously closely with the Americans, and they have been separating Western forces from the Taliban. They had told us, this militia, that they were going to be evacuated by the US when this was all done. This morning we went down there, sure enough, the Taliban had taken control of the northern perimeter. They said the handover began around 7 a.m. local time. We could see pockets of these Zero units surrounded by Taliban, and these two groups have been arch enemies for some years now. They've been surrounded, and the Taliban was slowly taking control of that stretch. So certainly, as this winds down, the Taliban picking up more areas of the airport. They had told us, this militia, that they were going to be evacuated by the US when this was all done. This morning we went down there, sure enough, the Taliban had taken control of the northern perimeter. They said the handover began around 7 a.m. local time. We could see pockets of these Zero units surrounded by Taliban, and these two groups have been arch enemies for some years now. They've been surrounded, and the Taliban was slowly taking control of that stretch. So certainly, as this winds down, the Taliban picking up more areas of the airport.
And what about the evacuations? What's happening there?
Well, there were thousands of people down there this morning still trying to get on some of these flights. We understand that they are winding down. When we were down there, we could see the tail of a military aircraft near the tarmac. If you look at flight radar, you can still see C-17s entering and leaving Afghan airspace, but fewer military aircraft than there were in previous days. And at the moment, they've evacuated more than 110,000 people. Whether they'll get huge numbers out in the next couple of days, it doesn't seem so as this starts to wind to an end. Certainly, US allies have started to end their evacuation efforts. The Turkish military, for example, have said that their military presence here has come to an end. But they, for example, are going to leave a technical team behind to help the Taliban essentially run the airport as of Wednesday, when all foreign forces are left.
All right, Charlotte, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much, Charlotte Ellis in Kabul. So it's being called a life-altering storm. Hurricane Ida is making
So you have to put the banana.
A U.S. intelligence review of the pandemic's China origins due today, but the public will have to wait to see a non-classified
Okay.
version.
Now I know.
A report says Beijing pressured the World Health Organization. That's to dismiss the Wuhan lab leak theory. The Chinese Communist Party retaliates against a Malaysian singer, all because he
Where am I supposed to put the turtle?
compared the regime's authoritarian power tactics with the Taliban's. American troops are still leaving Afghanistan, while Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative suffers inside Afghanistan's neighbor. And China's population may be shrinking
Why is he
faster
always in
than
that
any other
place?
nations. Chinese women gave birth to just 1.3 children on average last year. And even the nation's new policy changes may not be able to reverse the trend. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A 90-day U.S. intelligence review of COVID-19's China origin was due
Yeah, I
on
started
Tuesday.
it.
But according to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, the unclassified version is likely to be released to the public in a few days. In May, U.S.
It is
President
trying
Biden
to get
ordered aides to
what?
find answers to the origin of the coronavirus within 90 days, especially whether it leaked from a Chinese lab. Beijing cast the order as
Where are you
political
supposed to put the
manipulation.
turtle?
As the review's deadline
Turtle,
draws
where do you
near,
put him?
Beijing
Turtle,
got out of the
turtle,
US,
where do you put the
calling
turtle?
The Biden administration was anti-science, saying it would not be based on truth. At the same time, Beijing has ramped up efforts
Oh,
to
wait,
push its own
yeah.
version of the lab leak theory this week, including whether the virus slipped out of the lab on a U.S. Army base in Maryland. Meanwhile, China has refused to give U.S. researchers the needed access to the Wuhan lab and dismissed the theory that the
Claim
virus
it back
may have
again.
escaped from there. In past weeks, the WHO has tried and failed to convince Beijing to sign up for the next phase of its origin tracing plan. A World Health Organization research team that previously described Wuhan virus lab leak theory as extremely unlikely is changing its tune. Now the team's leader admits the statement was driven by pressure from China. The WHO team traveled to China earlier this year to probe the origins of the CCP virus, the infection that causes COVID-19. Before leaving China, team leader Ben Mbarek told reporters that a lab leak was extremely unlikely. When asked by a Danish TV station if that wording was a Chinese requirement, he said it was the category we chose to put it in at the end, yes.
Oh, I
Mbarek
thought
says
that's some kind
Chinese
of picture
officials
that we could
refused to
collect.
discuss the lab leak scenario, and any further investigation into it was dismissed. But other comments from Mbarek suggest otherwise. First of all, Mbarek says wild horseshoe bats aren't found in the Wuhan region. He explains that means the
So what do
patient
you
zero
think of
could
the
have been a
dogs?
lab worker. He also points out another concern. In December of 2019, a Chinese lab moved into a new building less than half a mile
Your
from
mommy
Wuhan's
told,
town
why
of
you not
Porius,
close the
Ohio.
door?
The epicenter of the COVID-19
Yeah, why don't you tell mommy to
Mbarek
close
says
the door?
virus samples in bats could have been moved outside of secure rooms
Tell
during
your mommy that
transfer,
your poop is
and
too
that could
smelly.
increase the possibility of a lab
What
leak.
the
Why your mommy never close the door? She want you to smell her poop? Yeah, she doesn't close the door, that means she wants you to smell her poopy.
WHO dismissed the lab leak theory in February. Senior WHO
say you
staff
like
were
the cookie?
actually
Are
shocked.
you supposed to do
One
that?
staff member has told the book's
You should have
authors
tell her.
he felt
Ooh.
Told her
hard
that.
tears. The WHO released a statement this month announcing the second phase of its virus origin probe. But that
The
news
mother's
hasn't
watching
sat well
like,
with
what the
China.
heck?
In July, Chinese officials said they would not accept any further investigation into the virus origin inside China. Territorial conflict in the South China Sea has been a regional flashpoint for years. Commenting on the situation, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in Singapore Tuesday. She blamed Beijing for endangering peace in the contested region. Here's more.
We know that Beijing continues to coerce, to intimidate, and to make claims to the vast majority of the South China Sea.
In a speech on Tuesday, Vice President Kamala Harris accused Beijing of coercion and intimidation in the South China Sea. She made the comment while visiting Singapore, the first stop on her Southeast Asia trip. Harris called the Chinese Communist regime's claims in the disputed waters unlawful.
Beijing's actions continue to undermine the rules-based order and threaten the sovereignty of nations. The United States stands with our allies and partners in the face of these threats.
She referred to a landmark international arbitration in 2016, which denied the Chinese regime's territorial claims in the South China Sea, but Beijing rejected the ruling. In recent years, the Chinese regime has been rapidly building up its military presence to support its claims in the region. Harris sought to reassure America's friends and like-minded nations in the Indo-Pacific.
The United States will pursue a free and open Indo-Pacific that promotes our interests and those of our partners and allies.
Her speech also touched on a number of other issues, including the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. She insisted the decision was courageous and right.
Vice President Kamala Harris is en route to Vietnam after a 3-hour delay. Her flight from Singapore was late because of a possible anomalous health incident in Hanoi. That's how the government usually refers to the mysterious Havana syndrome that has sickened hundreds of U.S. officials over the past few years.
How are you supposed to get high
There's still no
podium?
official explanation for the illness. It's meant to cause a mix of sensory experiences
podium?
and physical symptoms, similar to those of a concussion or mild head injury. Some experts believe these might be a result of microwave weaponry. The U.S. Embassy in Hanoi says after careful assessment, Harris decided to continue on the Vietnam leg of her Asia trip. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen recently approved a $7 billion budget bill that aims at mass missile production. It comes amid the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan after the Taliban seized Kabul last week. In an attempt to draw Taiwan closer, Beijing tried to portray the U.S. as an unreliable, weak power. Responding to the chaos, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen said the island needs to be stronger, more united, and more resolute in protecting ourselves, given the growing military threat from Beijing.
What is it?
According to Taiwanese media, the defense bill is expected to be sent to Taiwan's legislature by early September. If passed, the funds will be used to mass produce missiles with precision and long-range capabilities. A Chinese diplomat in Japan was counterattacked by Japanese netizens. This after he posted a caricature mocking the U.S. The Chinese Consul General in Osaka City posted on his Twitter account last week, mocking the U.S. military, saying U.S. planes bombed Afghanistan in 2001, and their planes dropped people while withdrawing from the country this year. This triggered a backlash.
Blame me, I did not know that.
Some responded with a tank man photo of Beijing's Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989 and dead bodies on the streets.
What the?
Some posted
The
in
police come out of the walls?
plane dropping the CCP virus or coronavirus and a Chinese plane dropping medical supplies. While others said this kind of behavior coming from a diplomat was shameless and indecent. The tweet caricature is not an isolated incident. Back in April, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs satirized the Japanese government's decision to discharge nuclear wastewater into the sea. For this, they changed one of the famous ancient Japanese ukiyo illustrations. This is not the first time Chinese diplomats have mocked the U.S. online. The Chinese embassy to Japan once tweeted that the U.S. was knocking on Egypt's door, and the illustration satirized the U.S. as the god of death. The Chinese embassy in Japan later took the tweet down, following the controversy that ensued. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, is retaliating against a Malaysian singer after he
This guy's a
posted
Malaysian,
the
one they saw the
and comparing it with the Taliban.
A social
The
media
guy there.
post titled
They saw
"Eight
nigga
Times
Thai.
Worse"
Ben
made a
Ben
splash in China last week. The post
Yeah, this guy Malaysian.
Taliban do mock Beijing.
So the way he dressed up and then
But it didn't take too long for Chinese authorities to take
he
notice.
dressed up the Taliban, into China, jail.
Media platform. The post ironically proposes what the Taliban must do to hold on to power.
What?
The steps outlined exactly match Beijing's tactics for maintaining control. The post first
Because this
suggests
guy go
Taliban
to every
block foreign
country,
websites, Facebook, YouTube, and Google. Then it advises setting up Taliban-run news websites and social media apps. That's so citizens will only have access to news produced by the Taliban with no outside information or influence. The post also ironically proposes establishing concentration camps and blackberries.
So what are you
These
supposed to
suggestions
do?
echo many of the Chinese regime's strategies that have been in play for years, from its internet censorship firewall to its persecution of prisoners of conscience, to its suppression of ethnic minorities in China's northwestern Xinjiang region. But the post doesn't stop there.
Next is that the Taliban
How
should
do you-
create a giant statue of its leader and place it at the gates of the presidential palace. And that's on top of putting up slogans in the streets and brainwashing students through their schools.
Oh.
During China's Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, authorities came up with an endless stream of propaganda slogans. At the same time, China also saw a nationwide trend of building statues idolizing former communist leader Mao Zedong. What's more, the Post advises the Taliban to urge citizens to attack criticism of authorities online, a prospect that bears a striking resemblance to China's so-called 50-cent army, a group of straight-back internet users paid to praise Beijing and its policies online, while attacking anyone who questioned or criticized the regime. What more does the Taliban need to do? According to the Post, it should pay foreigners to sing patriotic songs about Afghanistan and make patriotic movies. While in China, 2 films called Wolf Warrior 2 and
But I
Operation
didn't put
Red
it
Sea
there.
swept the country's box office in recent years and received massive attention on social media.
China's taking the opportunity of American troops leaving Afghanistan to criticize the U.S. By U.S. soldiers pulling out could cause trouble for China. The regime may be worrying about the chaos in Afghanistan reaching Pakistan, its partner in the Belt
If you
and Road
put out a
Initiative.
little good,
NTD's
what?
Darla has more.
As instability working from
那是你那时候你的吐口他跑嘛就。
national infrastructure projects.
What did you say before, Selena? Why you were so close?
The project has been criticized for trapping
What do you say about
other
mommy
countries in
before?
heavy debt. It's called the Belt and
That's
Road
why you come
Initiative.
here. Why?
Neighboring Afghanistan is
Mommy,
the South
that
Asian
was
country
really-
Pakistan.
Yeah?
Beijing has invested heavily in the country as part of
Your
its
mommy never closed the door. She want you to smell it.
all the
I closed the door.
countries.
Ma, you
Beijing
just closed
invested in the most in Pakistan. Reportedly around $63
Too smelly.
billion.
Yeah? Come out to the
The
lounge room.
stakes are high, so
Yeah.
the chance that chaos in Afghanistan could reach Pakistan
No,
may not
it
have
comes
gone
from
unconsidered by
The
Beijing.
living room.
China
They
has
come
not
into the
forgotten
living
about
room.
a suicide bombing that was carried out at a hotel where the Chinese ambassador was staying. It's also unlikely that China has forgotten about the attack on a bus in the country last month. A blast targeting a bus killed 9 Chinese Belt and Road workers who were employed in building a hydroelectric dam. The project was valued at around $4 billion. Earlier this month, Pakistan had blamed the attack on the Taliban.
It's like
A China
literally.
relations analyst at American think tank Red Corporation
what
says
else?
that there could be some tension between China and Pakistan if they don't figure out the Taliban terrorist situation.
How the heck?
A tension between China and Pakistan who are normally, very, okay with each other or the best of friends. If they can't get this terrorism problem resolved, if Pakistan is not willing to leverage its relationship with the Taliban for counterterrorism purposes in the way that China sees fit, then China and Pakistan may have some issues as well.
The President Venezuela project in Venezuela 6 years ago